Welcome to the Own Your Life podcast, where our goal is to help bring hope, healing, and peace by sharing our experiences and inspiring you to own your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own Your Life podcast. Today we have Eric Winters with us. He is the author of Swipe Right on Your Best Self, Simple Steps to a Bolder Life with Fewer Regrets. Welcome.
Ashley, thank you very much for having me here. And good morning from Sydney, Australia.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, we were kind of joking before. He's actually in the future. So we are talking to somebody who is a day ahead of us right now. Which is kind of cool. So maybe he can give us some pointers.
Yeah, no, I'd say tidy up before you go to bed and have a glass of water and you'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, today I'm a self-leadership coach. I've been doing that for 12 years, but prior to working in organizations, running leadership development workshops, I had a 20-year career working in the IT industry as a consultant. And I had the pleasure, the rich experience of working and living in a number of other countries. So I had 2 years in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, 8 years in Scotland, Bonnie, Scotland, in Edinburgh. That was fabulous too. 3 years in Munich, in Germany. If all of your listeners must visit Munich if they get a chance. It's just they've really got things sorted out there. Very, very organized, very beautiful city. And I've spent the last 20 years now living here in Australia. What I noticed was it didn't really matter which culture I was in working in IT. There was a familiar pattern was happening in leaders. And the thing about perhaps a lot of your listeners may already know about the IT industry is that it's generally an ongoing state of crisis in the organization, because you run these computers and they do important things. So you're managing the computers for the banks. And if they go down, the ATMs stop working. There's a lot of complaints. When the Qantas ticket booking system goes down, there's a lot of phones start ringing. So it's quite a high pressure environment. And I noticed that regardless of leaders' intelligence and experience, there were some who, when the pressure was really on, when suddenly the systems went down, they were able to manage themselves, manage their own minds, get the best from themselves, and most importantly, get the best out of others, even while all hell was going loose all around them. Then there were these other leaders who were equally intelligent. They were just as bright, just as skilled, just as experienced. But when the pressure was on, to some degree, they'd begin to panic. They couldn't think quite as well. They'd become a little anxious, and they would infect the teams with their anxiety. And I wanted to know, hey, what's going on here? It's not just intelligence. What's happening? And I discovered there's a rich science, a huge body of work has explored how can we work and make decisions and choices and work well under pressure. So I took a step back, and I've immersed myself in 2 wonderful master's degrees in human behavior change. And that's what I share now with people. How can we all get better at managing our minds to meet life's biggest challenges at work and at home more effectively?
Oh, that's wonderful. I feel like I've definitely seen that a lot in my own experience with, people that, have all this prestige and all this, these credentials, but yet emotionally they're not developed. And I think emotional intelligence is something, that is, I think it's being talked about more now, but I feel like it's been ignored a lot and not taught, which has caused things like that to happen.
That's right. And unfortunately, there's actually a reluctance in many organizations to truly embrace it. People like to talk about it. Oh, yes, it's very important, emotional intelligence, but actually doing the work, and it is work, it's practice, it's a skill development. People are less likely to do that. And we all have a tendency when things get hard, not to act in skillful ways, but to just try to use brute force. So I'll just use sheer willpower here. I'll make myself do it. And that's, sometimes sheer willpower is exactly what you need. You just need to knuckle down, force yourself through. But it's not the one tool fix all solution. There are better ways. There are better ways. And if we're going to sustain high performance and have really good relationships over the longer term and be ambitious, be personally ambitious in our professional lives as well, that's going to require some additional skills. And those are skills that we can all develop. And yes, they fall under that big umbrella of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and I think that that's what's hopeful for so many people, is that you can develop these skills that at least years ago, I didn't realize that I could change my thinking and change my emotional intelligence. I thought, however you are, however you were born, you're set. That's what you get, and good luck. But I think it's very encouraging to hear that we can develop these skills and become better.
Yes, and quite quickly, so we can get some results quite quickly, which fuels the hope. So we start off with a little bit of hope because someone mentions it to us. Then we try it. If you do try it, you'll find, oh, hello, no, I'm doing a little bit more of what's personally challenging, but really meaningful to me.
Absolutely. Where would you suggest somebody starts, maybe if they have no experience with, personal growth and emotional intelligence? What would you suggest?
Well, actually, there's a book I'd recommend. It's not my book. I mean, I'd love to recommend. Of course, I do recommend my book, but the place that I would encourage people right off the bat, my favorite book on this topic is called The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. And it's just as a really easy introduction into the topic. And it's a really honest discussion of what it's like to be a human being. The culture we live in tries to tell us that we should all be happy most of the time, and we should be cheerful, look on the bright side. And we get a lot of pressure to stay happy. And Russ says, well, yes, yeah, there's a lot of happiness, and life's really difficult. And the more honest we can be about that, actually, paradoxically, the easier it helps us to make good decisions. And Russ describes a lot of simple steps that we can take to begin to build emotional intelligence. So that's what I would say to listeners. Pick up a copy of Russ Harris's wonderful book, The Happiness Trap.
Yeah, I think that's great. I actually haven't read that, so I'll have to put that on my list of books to get for sure. But what I was thinking when you said that is, it is important to embrace, the other feelings and the other things that you're dealing with. Because I think so many of us just kind of brush it away. Like, no, I'm supposed to be happy all the time. I'm supposed to, be excited about everything. And honestly, you can't sustain that for a long period of time.
No, it's a lie. And it's just a lie. And it's hard work, actually, trying to put a smile on your face perpetually when you actually at the same time have natural concerns and worries. And there's lots to be naturally concerned and worried about right now.
Absolutely.
Okay? Yeah. So no, it's a more honest approach to life. And I truly believe if we are going to take responsibility for authoring our lives, for owning our lives, that is going to require honesty. It requires honesty about your circumstances and about your experience, and honesty about what matters to you, not what society says ought to matter of someone of your gender, of your age, from your background, but actually, yeah, if you could craft your own life, what's really important to you? What do you care about? And that requires an enormous amount of honesty, because sometimes these things will conflict. What our families, the hopes our parents may have had for us, in fact, often do not match up with our own hopes for what we want to do. I've met so many people who started careers in law and medicine, and I've heard the statistic is 30% of people who do that do it for their parents.
Wow.
30%, because there's such pressure from parents. Of course, parents want their kids to do well in life and to succeed and be respected. And of course, parents want other parents to respect them for having raised such great kids. That's natural. And an easy go-to is law and medicine, but it's not a good fit for at least 30% of people who embark. And of course, they burn out. They might stick at it for a year or two, or not even that. And then they veer off and find their own way. So why don't we find our own way sooner?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen that so many times. And I feel like that could also be why people in those professions, not everybody, but there is a high rate of depression and suicide and things like that, probably because they're not living up to what they actually want to do. They're just doing something because somebody told them to do it. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's not just, of course, the doctors and the lawyers and vets as well. Actually, that they're in a really bad position in terms of mental health. It's not just them. It applies to most people. Now, a palliative care nurse here in Australia actually wrote a book recently called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. So she was spending time with people in their last few weeks or days, taking care of them. And she was hearing the same regrets again and again. And the number one regret she heard was this: I wish I'd had the courage to develop a life true to myself and not the life that others expected of me. I wish I'd had the courage to lead a life true to myself and not the life that others expected of me. So this message is a gift from the dying to the living. It's a warning. The time to really think about, actually, what kind of a life do I really want is now. And that's the first thing, to craft it. And you can't do it in an afternoon. It takes time. And then the second step is actually to develop the courage. Don't use willpower, brute willpower, to insist you're going to do what's important to you. Rather, develop the skills to do what's difficult but meaningful. And they are skills. And that way we can avoid the number one regret of the dying.
yes, absolutely. And I've thought about that too. And actually, it's kind of funny. I think it was eighth grade that my teacher had us like write our own tombstone, which is a little morbid, but just gets you really thinking about, what would you want that to say? How do you want to be remembered? Oh, the person that was miserable in their job for 50 years or whatever? Or do you want to be the person that, took the risk and did the challenges, and maybe you fail at certain things, but that's okay. I think a lot of people want to avoid failure because they internalize it and think, well, I'm a failure if that didn't work out, instead of thinking, well, that didn't work, let's try something else and really create the life that they're going to love.
Yeah, absolutely. And the tombstone exercise is a bit challenging. It is, but there are ways in which we can do the same thing without any graveyards being involved.
A little less morbid.
Yeah, but that idea of being able to look back. What kind of ingredients would there be in a life of which you could be truly proud yourself? Never mind what other people standing around your grave are thinking. Never mind them. What about you? If when you're 70, 80, 90, whenever, and still healthy, okay, but more a little bit older and wiser, what would you like to be able to say is true about your life? What would you like? And a lot of the time, just as you said there, people want to be able to say, actually, you know what? I went for it. And look, some things, they didn't pan out. But you know what? I gave it my best shot. I don't regret having played my best hand. And when you ask people what are they most proud of in their lives to date, they tend not to say, I'm most proud of that time when I was lying on the beach, drinking a cold drink and it was warm and I was comfortable lying still. No, people tend not to be most proud. They're great moments, but not most proud of those events. They're most proud of the times they did something really hard. They may have started a new business, or they may have asked someone out and it led to a new career. They may have asked for something at work, asked for a pay rise or a move to a new location. They either asked for something or they may have attempted to make something happen, but they're still proud that they gave it a shot. They discovered for themselves. So yeah, let's craft lives to the best we can. And we'll never be perfect at it, but let's have a go at crafting, authoring a life that we can truly be proud of.
Absolutely.
And that requires a lot of honesty and a lot of courage. It's very easy to go with the flow and do what others tell you. Obedience is easy.
Yeah.
It's not so easy later on when you're looking back thinking, damn, last.
Right.
That was a life of conformity.
Yeah.
Great. I've pleased everybody else. Brilliant.
Now, is that why do you think people tend to avoid the challenge and the risk?
Oh, well, we're all naturally risk averse. So we don't like to say it, especially guys. We don't like to. We do not like to admit we have fears. So in my workshops, we don't talk about fears. We talk about, when I'm talking to guys, we talk about concerns. Men can admit to having manly concerns. So why are we so fearful? And I think there are three things that particularly hold us back. Three things. I call them the human predicaments. The first human predicament is that human beings, other animals don't do this, but if you're a human being, you spend half of your life, in the real world, drinking coffee, talking to people, feeding the sun on your face, all the rest of it, doing stuff. But the other half of your life, you spend in your head, imagining. So half of our life is a kind of virtual reality. And the problem with our virtual reality is that it's extremely compelling. We're very good at imagining stuff. And a friend of mine popped into a hardware store a couple of weeks ago to check out some of these new VR headsets. And he was in the ground floor of this building. He whacked on the VR headset, standing on carpet, and suddenly he's on the top of a skyscraper, on the edge. And the sales assistant said, "Sir, if you could just take a couple of steps forward, please." And he goes, "There's no way. You're kidding. No." So he held himself back from a virtual reality. Now, of course, afterwards, he took it back. He took this off. The virtual reality was in his hand. It was still there. But then he was able to step forward. Our problem as human beings is we generate our own fearful virtual reality, and we do not step forward because we imagine, what if I asked them out? What if they said no? What if my boss laughed when I asked for that promotion or that raise? What if I failed? We're very good at what if, and we see steep descents, very, very long falls ahead of us in our minds, and we hold ourselves back. But there are skills we can develop to kind of take our virtual reality off. We're never going to stop dreaming up worst case scenarios, but we can develop skills to get a little bit of distance from them so that we can make better choices. That's number one. We live in two worlds, and it's a very compelling world.
Yes.
Second human predicament is, and you can relate to that yourself, Ashley. I'm sure you've dreamt up at times.
Absolutely.
Yes. All sorts of catastrophic scenarios.
Yes, and most of the time they never happen.
Well, they don't, and it's a wonderful capacity to be able to imagine. It's great, but it's kind of it's in overdrive.
Yes,
it's the dial is turned up too high for caution. And anyway, number two, second human predicament is all of us live in an outside world that drip feeds us junk values.
Absolutely.
A steady diet of junk values. So the predominant message we have here in Australia, and I'm pretty certain it's the same where you are, is you've got to think positive. You've got to be positive. And it's almost like every billboard has a big sign saying, cheer up. Cheer up. You've got to cheer up. You've got to stay positive, look on the bright side. We're not allowed, we don't have permission to stay with discomfort. We can't talk about it with each other. If I ask you, Ashley, how are you doing? There's only one socially approved answer, broadly speaking. Yeah, you're fine. That's it. No one else you're just not permitted to say, well, actually, Eric, glad you asked. Actually having a hard day right now. I'm feeling complete overwhelm. There's a lot to juggle here. Got a number of calls to make. Bit anxious about my relationship, going through a bit of a rough patch. No. We can't voice any of that. The problem with this is that not only do we prevent ourselves from acknowledging the reality of our experience to others, we also fail to acknowledge the reality of our experience to ourselves. And we wonder what's wrong with us. Why am I not feeling cheery? And we lose the capacity to be with difficult thoughts and feelings, to be with them. And if you're going to have a courageous life that's true to yourself, you're going to have to be with uncomfortable thoughts and feelings a lot. 100%. If you're going for a career that's meaningful to you, a relationship that matters to you, it's going to be challenging throughout, from the beginning, when you initiate it. What if they say no? As you start it, to maintain a relationship, there are no challenge-free relationships.
Right.
There are no parents with kids that have challenge-free kids. They don't exist. They don't exist. Right. So you are going to have a challenging life. If it's going to be a meaningful life, it comes with challenge, and we're losing our ability to be with discomfort. The culture has trained us not to allow ourselves to talk about difficulty and to feel difficulty. That's number two. The final human predicament is, unlike every other animal, we know we're going to die.
Yeah.
And from a very young age, just little kids get this. They see their pets dying and they get it. They can forecast what's coming. Now, this is an uncomfortable truth, hey? This as inconvenient truths go, this is a biggie. This is a biggie. So your whole biology, your entire physiology, Ashley, and mine, is wired with this imperative: do not die, stay alive, stay safe, stay safe. So we've got this one imperative on the inside that says you must not die. And then we have this truth, this awareness: you must die.
Yeah.
So what do we do about this? We put the truth of our mortality well out of mind. We don't talk about it to each other. We kind of, that's something I'll think about later. We push it off. We defer it.
Yes.
Now, in the short term, that's relief. That feels better. I don't have to think about it. But when we put our own mortality out of our minds, we rob ourselves of a sense of urgency to make courageous decisions about our lives, our relationships, and our working lives now, while we have the time. So the time to be courageous, to have those conversations that you've been putting off, to say no to what's inappropriate in your life, what you're not willing to accept, and to ask for what you want more of at work and at home, is now. We really need that sense of urgency. So those are the three human predicaments that, if left alone, if left to themselves, will naturally, inevitably constrain our ambitions and keep us staying in the comfort zone, which is also the stagnation zone and the zone where you'll share the number one regret of the dying.
Absolutely. And I think that I feel like social media has helped to enforce everything you just said, because you always want to post your happy stuff, your birthdays, your parties, your weddings, all of that. You don't want to post, I had a terrible day. All of this happened. I got a mean phone call. My boss is mad at me. Like, nobody wants to post that. Everybody wants to post, my life is amazing and nothing ever goes wrong and I'm never sad. And that's so unrealistic. And I feel like our brains are looking at all these pictures and everything and like, wow, their life is so much better than mine. I must not be happy. But then we're not dealing, with our stuff. And it's a huge comparison game. And I feel like that has perpetuated the issue that you just talked about.
Oh, you are so right. And this is new. It's easy to forget this, but social media only really started in 2007.
Yeah.
That's when the iPhone launched. Before
Yes.
that, we were not comparing ourselves continually to others and being presented with this imaginary world. The writer Anne Lamott, fabulous, fabulous writer. She's got a TED talk and she talks about things she's learned in life. And one of her bits of advice is, do not compare your insides with other people's outsides.
Yeah.
Because when we do, we feel on the inside, all of us feel anxious. We've all got a self-critical mind. We're all got this internal dialogue non-stop. And it's mostly not very cheery. But then we look at other people. Oh, and they seem to have it together. Everyone else seems to be calm. They're not. But if you compare your insides to their outsides, whether it's on the street or on social media, you'll find a mismatch. And that mismatch between your own lived experience and this fantasy that you see in social media will inevitably have you wondering, yeah, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? Why? And you'll feel isolated. When we feel a part of, isolated, inevitably, we are actually discouraged. So our capacity to make hard choices is undermined. And that's the problem with comparison with others and social media. It discourages us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's just such an unreal picture of what real life is. And going back to, like dealing with, you need to be able to be okay with feeling upset or depressed or frustrated or anything like that, that I think so many people think there are bad emotions, and there aren't. Emotions are just emotions. They tell you what's going on. They're indicators, and that we need to look at them as that and not feel bad or shame or guilt for having a certain emotion that might not be, what's acceptable to society.
Yeah, totally. That's right. There are no bad. There are uncomfortable emotions.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Sure. Plenty of them. And unfortunately, they tend to linger for longer than the good ones.
Yep.
Good ones are fleeting. They bubble up and we get this frisson of happiness, and then but there's a wonderful book called The Human Predicament by David Benatar. And he makes this point that unfortunately pain is chronic and lasting in life. And so is disappointment and regret. But all the positive stuff that we kind of hunger for and chase, it happens and it's lovely, but it's like a firework. Poof. Oh, I feel good. Wait. Oh, and then it dies down and we go chasing for it again. So but look, this is the life we're in. This is what it's like to be a human being. Let's make the most of it. Such as it's warts and all. Let's just make the most of it and have some compassion for one another. You're in the same boat of having a human mind. I'm in the same boat. Everyone you see out there, all the people who seem to have it together, we're all in the same boat.
Right. Yes. They all put the socks on the same way.
Yep. That's right.
Yep. What mindset or mindsets would you suggest people work on, having to be able to, deal with the discomfort and really to own their life?
Yes. So how do we develop the mindsets which are going to support us to live courageously? And there are three mindsets that I've identified which encourage us, they're antidotes to the human predicament. So we're not using willpower and bloody mindedness. We're instead using emotionally intelligent approaches. The first one is to cultivate, and this is very well known, and ancient wisdom advocated this. It's as true today as it was thousands of years ago. But the first one is to cultivate an attitude of what I call defiant gratitude. Defiant. Now, it's defiant because the billboards and the advertising will tell you that as you are, you're lacking. You're not popular enough. See how many people on this poster we're showing you, how happy they all are because they've got the right fragrance, perhaps, or the right watch, or they're doing something that you don't have. Look how popular. So you're not popular enough. You're not attractive enough. You're not skilled enough. You're not rich enough. You're not enough as you are.
Yeah.
So all advertising, and it's everywhere we look now, isn't it? It's absolute. You can't put your eyes anywhere without there being a subtle promotion of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking now, I should have had a few subtle promotions for my book on my background, which I might add later. So anyway, we've got this constant messaging that we're not enough. And that erodes us. So the antidote to not feeling enough is gratitude. Defiant, because we're being told you're not enough. We'll defy that. Defy the advertisers and appreciate and value the good things that we do have in life. And this is ancient wisdom. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, said 2,000 years ago, oh, you'd like to be happy? Learn to want what you already have.
Oh, it's good.
Learn to want what you already have. And this isn't saying be satisfied and do not strive for more. That's not it at all. Yeah. It's just enjoy what you do have. And we all get habituated, we get used to stuff very, very quickly. So we hunger for whatever it is, the next thing. And we believe, life will be so much better when I get the next thing. Yeah. And it is better. It is better for a little while. We open it up. Oh, great. I've got this thing now. Or I've got a new sofa. I've got a new relationship maybe, or the new job. But we get used to whatever it is. We become accustomed. So the antidote is to pause and just turn briefly, once a day, briefly, for half a minute, if you can spare it, half a minute, to acknowledge what's good in your life. What's good? That's all. And it's not about getting the most number of things in 30 seconds, but just maybe one or two. What's one or two things actually that you appreciate in your life, and just savor it. Have the experience of, I'm really glad. Right now, we've just started a new lockdown here in Sydney, and I'm really appreciative that I do have somewhere where I can go for a walk. Actually, it's by the sea. It's very, very lovely. Awesome. Wow, great. I'm so appreciative that I can do that.
Yeah.
But there's lots we can be, hot and cold running water. I know it's a bit ordinary, but emperors until recently did not have that ability. They did not have the ability to turn on hot and cold running water at will.
Yeah.
We live in an age of miracles. I'm talking to you. Where in the world are you quite, Ashley?
I am in Tampa, Florida.
You're in Tampa, Florida. How astonishing is that? I'm in Sydney, Australia, and I'm talking to you in real time. There's no lag. It doesn't feel like, it's not like you're at the end of a tunnel. Hello, what's that, Ashley? Goodness, you're clear, you're loud, I can see you. We live in an age of miracles, and we take it for granted.
All the time.
Yeah, so defiant gratitude is the first mindset. The second mindset to help manage the human predicaments is self-compassion. It's kindness. You did not ask to have a human body and a human mind that was afraid. You didn't ask for that, I don't think. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose where you grew up in. You didn't pick the school you went to. You didn't choose the economic crisis or the COVID pandemic. I don't think you're responsible. You're not responsible actually for an awful lot of what's happened to you, an awful lot.
Yeah.
Here you are. I think some kindness directed towards yourself. It's a challenging thing being a human. And if we can be honest and actually acknowledge, you know what, this is hard. Actually, this is rough. That kindness directed towards yourself actually encourages us. The researcher Christine Neff, self-compassion researcher, world's leading researcher on the topic, has found that people who practice kindness towards themselves are courageous. It turns out it fuels ambition. It gives people a stronger platform from which to reach for things that they want in their lives. So being kind, some of the managers I speak to say, hang on, Eric, if I'm kind to myself, aren't I going to lose my drive? Won't that mean that I'll just be kind of complacent and satisfied with where I am I can't afford to undermine my drive. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And no, it doesn't happen. That's not what happened. When we're kind to ourselves, it encourages us. The other important part, and you were talking about this earlier, how we need to be with discomfort.
Yeah.
Lots of self-compassion, according to Christine Neff, is developing the ability to be with your own difficult thoughts and feelings, not to exaggerate them, not to dismiss them and push them away, but to hold them in balanced awareness. Yeah, actually, I am feeling sad. I am feeling distraught. I'm feeling hurt. There's anger. So you're not kind of being angry and taking it on fully, but you're acknowledging, yeah, I am feeling this. So it's a key skill. This is all part of self-compassion for the situation we're in. And the third mindset that I train people to develop is what I call courageous authenticity. And the first part is authoring your own life, owning your own life, deciding what it's going to look like, what matters to you. And the second part is developing the ability to pay the price and the willingness to pay the price of discomfort that will go along with doing what's meaningful to you. There's an attitude shift amongst the courageous people. They are willing to feel discomfort. They're not waiting in their lives until they feel completely ready.
Yeah.
Like, when's that going to happen?
Never.
Never. They're not waiting. They're not putting their lives on hold. They are willing to, and it really is paying a price. Most people are very, very honest when they go shopping. You go to the shops and you see the eggs, what have you, you see the price and you make a decision. Am I willing to pay that? I'd rather not pay any money, but am I willing to, preferably, they just give me the food. They don't know. But you look at the price and you make a decision and you either say, yes, that's a fair deal. I'll accept the price. Or sometimes we'll go, no, too high. I won't do it. Well, in life, when you're going to reach for the relationships you want, the career that you want, showing up as your real self, being different, risking being different perhaps to others, that comes with a price, and the price is discomfort. So I help people to develop the ability to choose, and it's a decision to choose. Am I willing to experience that discomfort and hold it in balanced awareness, not have it sweep me away in terror and fear, but am I willing to accept it and take action with the discomfort? And that's the important thing. And I call that courageous authenticity. The 3 mindsets, they're all skills and they're all things we can get better at.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what I was thinking when you're saying all that, what kind of routines or habits would you suggest to somebody to help with that? Because I know some people, maybe when they start dealing with things, that they might end up with bad coping mechanisms, maybe drinking or doing drugs or just something that's, obviously harming them and not helping them deal with what they're going through and developing a healthy way, to grow and change.
Yes. And I'd just like to acknowledge that when, all of us at times have found ways to soothe ourselves when we're challenged that are not particularly helpful. Right. And unfortunately, the world we're living in now makes it easier than ever.
Yes.
I've got, well, they call them bottle shops here. I think they're liquor stores in the US, 500 meters away. And it's open extraordinary hours, and it promises to be the cheapest of all anywhere in Australia. And it's easier than ever for us to find distractions, whether it's things we eat and drink or the internet. Look, 24 hours a day, we've got distractions. It's an Aladdin's cave of distractions which soothe us from doing the hard things. So what can we do to help ourselves? The very first thing that I encourage my coaching clients to do is actually, it's not to do any mind tricks or any mental hacks, as much as that people love learning about these psychological tricks. It's not that. It's actually to attend to our physiology. So all of us are more reactive and more habitual and more impulsive and surrender to urges when we don't get enough sleep, when we don't move enough in our lives, and when we eat poorly, when we have a high sugar diet. Now, these are ordinary things, so it's a little bit boring to talk about it. But the impact, especially sleep, I'd say if you're going to focus on one of those three, it's sleep. Every night during REM sleep, dream sleep, and we have about 5 periods of REM sleep every night. During the REM sleep, and only during the REM sleep, you and I and all your listeners get an emotional intelligence makeover. Our emotional circuits get tuned. They get tuned again. If that doesn't happen, if you rob yourself of, say, an hour of sleep tonight, you will wake up in the morning feeling more reactive. You will surrender to urges. You'll be impulsive. Your capacity to choose, to resist temptation, will be significantly eroded. Not because you're bad, not because you're weak or flawed or defective, but because you didn't get that REM sleep. And unfortunately, most of the REM sleep overnight, it's not equally distributed over the course of a night. It's towards the last few hours. We get more of our REM sleep in the last few hours. So the very first thing we need to attend to, if you'd like to own your life, author it, and courageously live it, is to get your sleep in, because it prepares you to make tough decisions and to say no to temptation and to say yes to challenge. It's the first thing. And people don't want to know about that they need to, that we should sleep more. It's not very exciting.
Right.
But there's nothing we can do. There's really nothing else in our lives that has a bigger impact on our ability to make this. And it's not just the ability to make hard choices, but also just our well-being, just our general happiness, our demeanor. It's sleep has been described by the sleep researcher Matthew Walker as our life support system. Our life support system. Wakefulness each day is a period of slow, progressive brain damage. Unfortunately, being awake causes buildup of waste products in the brain cells. And it's during the nighttime that our brains get tidied up, that the brain damage gets repaired.
Yes.
Our immune systems get a big boost, particularly during deep sleep, and we get that emotional intelligence makeover. Critically good things happen to you. This is not wasted time. Sleep time, there's good things happening. And it helps you to, in fact, it's necessary to prepare you to own your life. Sleep. That's the first thing I ask people to do.
I totally agree with that, because I'm big into health and holistic and in all of that. And I used to be somebody who didn't like to sleep as much because I wanted to get more done and just be busy. And just realizing how beneficial sleep is and how important it is, and that your brain pretty much washes itself when you're asleep and restores your body. And that's how you can stay healthy and feel better. And it sets you up for your next day. Cause I know we've all had lack of sleep, where you get up, maybe you don't make the best decision. You eat maybe cake for breakfast or something, and then you have 4 cups of coffee and maybe an energy drink halfway through the day, and you're struggling, and you make terrible food decisions the whole day. And then you feel like crap all day long, all because you didn't get your sleep.
Yes. So if people can think about, we actually get ready for tomorrow the day before.
Yes.
We're setting ourselves up, from about 6 p.m. really. The choices you make from 6 p.m. have a significant impact on what kind of a day you're going to have tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So, but that's hopeful. We shouldn't be looking at this thing, oh no, that's terrible. I haven't been sleeping well, bad me. No, this is actually good information that we can all act on. In a sense, it doesn't matter what happened yesterday. That's an irrelevance. Tonight and tomorrow have never happened before. Every minute that rolls towards us on this conveyor belt of time is new. It's fresh and it's unlived. You can make new choices at any moment. We are not tethered to the things we did in the past. The human mind has a tendency to think that, oh, I'm this kind of a person. This is the kind of thing I do. It's a fib, really. Yeah. We're actually all, it's a compelling fib. We all have this sense of having an identity, a persistent identity that just goes on through life. Well, actually, you are a process. You're a happening. You're a happening. And you just now has never existed before. You're changing in every moment. You can make a new choice now. You do have that capability. And people love discovering that actually they can change unhelpful habits. And a part of them says, oh, no, I can't. It'd be impossible. It'd be awful. It'd be dreadful if I don't have that drink, have that cake, have that cigarette, what have you. It would be, I'll just die 1,000 deaths. And when they discover they don't, actually, there is no self-combustion.
Right.
And there's this surprise, there's this complete shock. And then they'll make excuses. Oh, it was just because of this. But if you do it a couple of times, 3 or 4 times, there's a wonderful freedom that comes with discovering you can make new choices, any choices, starting now. And a good one would be to get a decent night's sleep.
Yes, it all starts there. And I think the encouraging thing is it's easy. We all can do it. Yes. We just have to do it. We just maybe setting alarms on your phone, something to help you stick to that habit, I think is so important.
Yes, you're right. There are little things we can do. And having a compelling why is important too. Because, we're not saying this is, habit change is a walk in the park. It's not. There's some effort involved. There will be a bit of an internal struggle. But if you've got a big enough why, a compelling why? Now, actually, what I'd really like to do is see if I can develop my ability it could be pottery or writing. I'd like to see how far I can get with writing or doing YouTube videos or growing carrots in the garden. I'd like to see if I could get a really good crop of carrots or anything. If you've got something that you'd quite like to get better at, then you're changing your habits in order to help you achieve that. So we all need to really begin with having a compelling why and to author our own whys.
Absolutely. And I know we're running a little short on time here at the end, but just want to ask you, what would you like to leave our audience with?
Oh, I'd like to go back to something we were talking about earlier, and we're talking about gratitude and defiant gratitude. I'd like to share with people what I call the ultimate gratitude exercise, the ultimate. And I've only discovered it in the last few months, perhaps 6 months ago, and I found it to be the most powerful way to rush into a sense of amplified gratitude. And it's this. The reality is, in life, at some point, we will do everything for the last time. At some point, you'll go to a restaurant for the last time. You'll visit a country for the last time. You'll see a person for the last time. Everything we'll do for the last time. But actually, we have already done many things for the last time. There are streets you've walked down in countries you visited that you will never walk down again. Yeah. There are restaurants you visited which have closed since, and perhaps there are people that you've met who either your paths, for one reason or another, your paths won't cross again. So the exercise is this. It's just twice a day when you do anything, and you can really pick anything at all. Let's talk about, are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, Ash? Coffee, great. I'd like you to, next time you have a coffee, to imagine it's your last coffee. Now, not because you're going to die, and
Right.
no
Right.
gravestones here. We're not having any tombstones in this exercise. But let's imagine it's just a mind game. The coffee harvest has failed, and
Yeah.
a virus has wiped out the coffee bean. It doesn't matter what. You don't have to think about that. But this, for some reason, is your last coffee. Well, if you were to have in your hand the last coffee you were ever going to drink, Ashley, how much attention would you give to the smell, to the scent? How much of your appreciation would you give to the flavor as it moved over in your mouth, the texture as you swallowed it? How present would you be to every last moment of your final coffee? What would that be like?
I would pay a lot of attention to it for sure. I feel like it would be the best cup of coffee I've ever had.
And this is the wonderful thing. Our appreciation, it would be the best coffee because you would give so much attention to it. It would amplify all the nuance, the flavors, the scent, the whole experience is amplified. Now, this exercise, you can do it with things that you already enjoy, but weirdly, I've also practiced it with things that I feel a bit ho-hum about, that are neither here nor there, like walking down a supermarket aisle. And I think, well, what if this was the last time I was ever going to walk down a supermarket aisle? The very final time. And suddenly you're present. So it really dials up your experience of the present moment in a way that previous advice, where people would say things like, smell the roses. Yes, you should stop and smell the roses. Well, yeah, okay. And you can go so far with, yeah, okay, I'll enjoy this. But if you tell yourself, no, let's imagine this is the very final time I'll see a tree, see a dog wagging its tail.
Yeah.
The final time I'll meet my partner, perhaps. What if this was the last time? It cultivates and amplifies and accelerates a profound sense of appreciation and awe and gratitude. So I'd leave your listeners with that, the ultimate gratitude exercise.
I love that. That's wonderful. And if people want to find more out about you or your book, where would you have them go?
I would send them to my website, ericwinters.com.au. And right at the top of the page, you can download the first quarter of my book, but for free. But the good news is you don't have to read the first quarter. You'll know within the first page whether this is the kind of book that's going to excite you, the way that it's written. So it's a book all about developing courage to live a life that's true to yourself. So I'd encourage people to download that from my website. And also, if people are really interested in developing courage, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from people and sharing shared wisdom about how we can live courageous lives. So LinkedIn, and I'm also on Facebook at ericwinters.com.au.
Wonderful. We will have all that in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. And I know you've added a lot of value to our listeners. So everybody, please share this message. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please rate and review us. And until next time, own your life, because your life is your responsibility. Thank you all for listening. If this added value to you, please click subscribe and rate and review us. You can also find us at Own Your Life Co. on Instagram and Facebook, and ownyourlifeco.com. And as always, own your life, because your life is your responsibility.